Hey everyone, tell me if this happens to you. You're working on a session and there's a section where it needs something, but you're not quite sure what yet. That's where loop recording can really help out. Let's dive into the DAW. We're going to dive straight into this one because I want to show you a few things you should set up before you start doing loop recording. For those that don't know, loop recording is when you actually set up a section to loop over and over and over again. And depending on your DAW, you actually may be able to record all of those different loops as different takes. So let me show you in Studio One how we set that up, and you'll have to do this in your DAW. So here's our session. It's just a simple drum loop, and I threw down some rhythm guitars and a bass on top of it. It's just 3 chords, and it's following the same thing. It's a loop. We're just going to imagine that this is a solo section or a bridge or just somewhere in the song where we need something else. Here it is on its own. Straightforward, but we need to add something else in here. Keys, guitar, you pick that out. But I want to show you some of the settings to make sure that when you're looping and recording, that you're going to be getting all of the things that you're going to do. So when you're in Studio One, here's the first thing you want to do. Obviously, you want to create your loop. And if you didn't have that already, let's just get rid of this one. A very fast and easy way to create a loop is to grab a section. If I click on this one event, you can see it's only 4 bars long. I don't want to loop just 4 bars. I want to loop this whole section. What I can do is I can press Shift on my keyboard and click on the second loop. Now I have multiple things selected. But if your session also already has this, I have one event that's already the entire section. I can just click on this one. Either way, what you're going to do from here is hit the letter P on your keyboard. If you're using the default shortcuts in Studio One, this will make a loop of your selection. You can see our loop changed to up over here. So now we know we have everything selected. When we engage our loop, these 8 bars are just going to go forever and ever. Let's activate our loop by hitting the backslash or question mark key on our keyboard. You'll see that the loop selection turns this light blue. Now we know we have our loop activated. Before we go in, all the way down on bottom for your transport bar down here, there's a little cogwheel. Click on this and you'll get this additional menu. And here, what you want to make sure, record mode. Takes 2 layers. When we're recording audio on an audio track like this is going to, every time it resets those 8 bars or 4 bars or whatever your loop is, as you record, it creates a new take or a new layer that we use inside Studio One. Once you've gone through, then you can go back and pick the best one, or you can use all of those different takes to comp together the perfect take. So the record mode on the left, this is for audio. Instrument loop record, that is for your MIDI instruments, your keyboards, things like that. If you have this set to record mix, it'll actually just start merging all of that MIDI together. So you want to do record takes, and you can always merge it later. For record mode as well, replace does exactly like you think. For audio, it just replaces. It doesn't make it as new layers. And then input quantize is exactly what you think. It can actually take what you've recorded and quantize it if you need it to be locked to the grid. I'm not going to turn that on right now. Okay, so that's what you need to set up. You have to set your loop selection, and then you actually need to turn on takes to layers. I'm gonna let this go through 2 times and just kind of noodle around on guitar, and then I'm gonna show you what happens when you're done with that. Check this out. If you stop looping, especially in Studio One, if you stop the take halfway through the loop, it just deletes it. So be cautious of that if you have like the perfect take on whatever you're doing. Go 1 extra loop. When you're finally finished doing all of your different takes and you've worked out your part, this is something that you can really do at home and don't waste time in the studio doing this. I've looped it a bunch of times and I want to pick the best one. And you may notice there's an event icon here, which looks like a little stack of lines. And then also on the left-hand side over here, it's a little tough to see, but there is also the expand layers button here. Another way to do it is right-clicking on the track header here, where you can then expand layers. And if we expand this out, you can now see I've got a bunch of different takes. A lot of these are from earlier. You didn't see those. Now that we have all of these different parts in here, we can go through soloing the different layers, the different takes. And we're not soloing just this track. We're soloing this take to hear it in comparison with everything else. Then you just go through, find the best things, and comp it as you normally would. Studio One makes this easy. Maybe in this take, this was all amazing. I just highlight that, and if I scroll up, you can see that that has been promoted, it's moved up. I think you can see how setting up loop recording, especially when you're developing a part or a section or just a feature, loop recording can be really beneficial when you're working through these parts and trying to figure out what you want to do. It doesn't have to be just guitars. Do this with keyboards. Do this with vocalists. If they're working on a section of song and they don't know what to do, create a loop and just start going over and over, come up with an idea, then develop it from there. Loop recording doesn't have to be difficult. It's easy to set up with just a couple setting changes. And then you are now set to start stacking up a bunch of different options if you're working through parts or are just trying to land the perfect take. If you have more questions, reach out to me on Discord or in the comments down below. Check out the hats, and I'll see you next time.